Hey guys, welcome back to Boardwatch. I'm Brian.
And I'm Joey.
And we are going to get History and Lore Seasons 3 and 4 out of the way today. So, it's been a while. It's been,
Since
it's been like a good month or so since
I don't know if you guys have been watching the lores, but honestly, or wait till we're watching them. But either way, the lores are really cool. I was just telling Brian, it adds such a better full picture to the entire show. Probably give you guys, since you guys have already seen it, like more of a fuller picture, things you might not have noticed or seen. We definitely.
Yeah, I know some of you guys have been like, when is Season 3 lore coming up?
We're
already posting episodes of Season 5. It's just like, we're trying.
We're only people. There's only so much
Normally
time.
we record twice a week, 2 episodes a week, like 2 episodes every time, but then we have to reschedule a third recording date a week just to do these 2 history and lores, but we finally found time to do it.
Yeah.
So here we go, History and Lore Season 3.
Conquer the world. In the dawn of days, the city of Geese opened its gates and poured forth its legions across the continent of Essos. With their lockstep discipline and absolute obedience, they ground entire nations beneath their boots and planted the harpy in every corner of the known world. What they didn't destroy, they chained. Slavery is as old as man, but until the Giscari, it was never an art. The slave lords grew rich and fat as pyramids were raised around them, pleasure houses were filled, and fighting pits were opened. Nobody remembers if the waters around Geese had names before the Empire, but ever since, we know them only as Slaver's Bay and the Gulf of Grief. Of Geese, however, nothing remains but ruins, where end all great civilizations. 5,000 years ago, Valyrian shepherds stumbled on strange eggs, and within a few generations, an upstart Valyrian freehold rose across the sea. 5 times did the Giscari contend with Valyria.
The Giscari are
5
harpies.
times did they go down in defeat, for the freehold had dragons, and the Empire had none.
Oh shit.
The best of their legions burned, the others broke. The brick walls of Geese were pulled
Oh,
down,
that's so
the
dope that
streets
she
and
tore down the
buildings
harpy.
turned to
That gives
ash,
so much more
and
when
the
I
very
saw that
fields
now.
sown with salt, sulfur, and skulls.
And then that drug on
Yet
was
the
sitting
Empire
where the
was not
harpy
wholly
was. That's
destroyed.
sick. See, talking about little things.
Yunkai and Marine, once lowly colonies along Slaver's Bay, survived and even thrived. Valyria had watched the Giscari grow rich and powerful off the backs of conquered peoples, and now the self-styled Freehold wanted its turn. While the Dragon Lords brought the world to heel, the slave markets of their former enemy never lacked for flesh. Lamenting the lost empire, the descendants of old Geese grew rich and fat. The doom fell on Valyria, and the Dothraki rose to pillage most of the continent at will. But gold-laden Astapor, Yunkai, and Marine continue as they have for thousands of years, untouched. For even the Horse Lords understand what the Giscari taught Valyria so long ago. What good are slaves without slavers? When the Doom claimed Valyria, the great freehold fractured into warring cities and upstart nations, ripe for the taking. Out of these swarmed the Dothraki, the Horse Lords of the Plains who feared only defeat and dragons. And now the dragons were all gone. Under the great Khal Temu, they sacked and burnt every town and city in their path. No army could stand against them, because the Dothraki do not stand. The Horse Lords do not draw up battle lines or hide behind shield walls or lair themselves in armor. The Dothraki charge. Their blades are more scythe than sword, the better to cull the infantry ranks without breaking stride. Even their archers fire from horseback so that advancing or retreating, the arrows never cease. To the Dothraki, a man who does not ride is no man at all, without honor or pride. When the city of Korhor realized Khal Temu was coming, they strengthened their walls, doubled their own guards, and hired 2 full companies of sellswords. The Dothraki were used to glorified farmers with spears. Korhor would show them a proper army, with mounted and armored cavalry to match the Horde's own. As an afterthought, the city leaders sent an envoy to Astapor to buy Unsullied. The slavers had always claimed that the Unsullied were the great Giscari legions come again. Few cared. The dragon-burnt ruins of Old Geese were a stark reminder that the age of the foot soldier was over. The envoy had his orders, however, and quickly bought 3,000 Unsullied for the long march back. For Unsullied do not ride. But while they marched, Carl Temo arrived at Quohor. I can imagine how pleased the Carl was to finally face a challenge. By the end of the battle, crows and wolves feasted on what remained of Quohor's heavy horse. All the sellswords had fled. Quohor knew that the Dothraki would very soon break through the gates to rape, slave, and burn at their pleasure. Yet the next day, Carl Temo woke to find, before the gates, 3,000 eunuchs in formation, armed with only spears, shields, and spiked helms. The Unsullied had slipped past the Carl's army in the night while the Dothraki feasted. Carl Temo had many times their number and could easily have flanked the small force, but to the Dothraki, men on foot are fit only to be ridden down. 18 times the horse lords charged, and 18 times the Unsullied locked their shields, lowered their spears, and held the line against 20,000 Dothraki screamers. When the Carl's archers rained arrows on them, the Unsullied lifted their shields above their heads until the squall passed, and then they held the line. In the end, only 600 Unsullied remained, but more than 12,000 Dothraki lay dead, including Carl Temo and all his sons.
600 Dothraki?
The new Carl led the survivors past the city gates, where one by one, each man cut off his braid and threw it down before the feet of the Unsullied, defeated and shamed forever. Since that day, the Unsullied fill the ranks of cities and households wealthy enough, or desperate enough. Sellswords fight for gold, knights for glory, and Dothraki for blood. To a man, the Unsullied fight only to obey. With the right master over them, imagine how the forces of chaos would break against their shields. The conquerors, the madmen, the usurpers.
Mine.
Daenerys needs Tyrion bad
That's
though.
what the Red Keep is.
And to listen to
The
it.
small
Yeah,
folk
and to listen
say
to
its
him.
colour comes from the blood Aegon
Joffrey.
spilled to win his crown. Fools.
Fuck this kid.
Blood doesn't soak into stone, no matter how hard I try. Aegon built his castle of red rock to remind people of the fires he'd roasted his enemies in. So whenever King's Landing looked up, they'd see the price of defiance. He knew the first rule of kings. Only fear keeps men in line.
It's a big ass.
Fear and punishment. A lesson he taught his son, Maegor. When the builders finally finished the Red Keep, Maegor executed them all to keep its secrets safe. Rumor has it, miles of hidden passageways run behind the walls and under the floors. One day I'll have to find them. Traitors and women work in shadows. A king has no need for secrecy. Now, people name Maegor the Cruel, but I doubt any dared in his day. His strength was all too rare in the degenerate Targaryen blood. The simpering Baelor, the Blessed, created the Maiden Vault to imprison his own sisters and save himself from carnal thoughts. Disgusting. Though, I admit a Prince Vault could be amusing when Tommen bores me. My favorite place in the Red Keep? There's so many. The Traitor's Walk, where I mount the heads of my enemies.
Oh god.
It's a shame flesh rots so slowly. I've almost run out of space. The dungeons are also quite nice once you get past the first 2 levels. A stable for common criminals and private cells for useful highborns. How boring, I know.
Useful.
But then you come to the black cells. No windows, no torches, just darkness
God, fuck
and
Jon.
whatever you hear in there with you. Here we keep the greatest traitors, until the king is ready for them. And with these, I often like to take my time. But I've heard rumors of an even lower, hidden level, Maegor's favorite. Once a man was taken here, he never saw the sun again, nor heard a human voice, nor breathed a breath free of agonizing pain. Varys must know the way, but that overgrown girl pretends not to. Maybe he fears I'll make him a victim. Maybe I will. Then again, torture chambers are just so private. Better to punish your enemies where everyone can see and remember. Like that Targaryen who forced his nephew to watch as he fed the boy's traitor mother to a dragon. Oh, what I could do with a dragon. Even Aerys, fool as he was, knew to burn men alive with an audience, to spread the terror far and wide across his kingdoms. Of course, I know my favorite place now. When I sit on the Iron Throne, high in the Red Keep, all of Westeros scuttles below me, like insects, waiting for my heel to land.
Mudmen, bog devils. Those are just the most pleasant names our fellow Northerners have for us, the Crannogmen who live in the swamps of the Neck. Because we do not live in castles like them. Because we do not farm like them. Because we are not tall or rich like them. But through our veins flows the same blood of the first men. And, at times,
Who's that?
maybe something
Are we
more.
doing that now, Ria?
Is that?
We still live much as they did,
Melissa?
on floating islands in houses of thatch and woven reeds.
It might be.
We fish, hunt,
I
and
don't
tell
think
our
so.
children of our heroes. The knight
No.
of the laughing tree who fought in the year of the false spring. The last marsh king who challenged the Starks and lost his crown and his daughter. And other stories, older still, since lost to the world. The Neck was not always a swamp. In the Dawn Age, it was as dry and fertile as the rest of the North. But during the war with the First Men, the children of the forest brought down the hammer of waters on the Neck, trying to break Westeros in two.
Mira?
When the waters finally receded, they
Maybe,
left the
actually.
bogs and swamps we know today. Many of the First Men decided to fight on, but my ancestors wisely chose to heed the children's power and advance no farther. They beat their swords into frog spears and fish hooks, and settled a land forever devastated by the folly of war. Unlike the rest of Westeros, we keep no garrisons and raise no soldiers for petty spats with our neighbours. Our land protects its own. An outsider will find in the Neck an endless morass of suckholes, quicksands, and green grass that looks solid to the unwary eye, but turns to water the instant you tread on it. If you're lucky enough to be armoured, you'll only drown inside your own steel. If you're not, you get to meet what swims in that water. Serpents and monstrous lizard lions with teeth like daggers and never enough to eat.
Oh, this is
Don't
sick. I
worry.
hope we get to see that.
Only your horse will live long enough to feel their poisons burning through it. If you somehow survive all this, you may find that a well-placed dart can be as deadly as any blade.
Oh, nice.
Not that you'll see us.
These people
doing
are
it,
badass. I hope we get to go to the Neck
Since
soon.
the
I
fall
don't
of
know
the
where the
last
fuck the
Marsh
Neck
King,
is.
House Reed has ruled the Neck
House
beneath the
Reed.
banner of a
Alright, so
black
that's
lizard
Mira.
lion on a grey-green field.
Mira,
We're not
Jojen-
well
Jojen
known
Reed.
Jojen Reed,
or
Mira
known,
Reed.
even to
Oh,
our
they're
own
from that.
countrymen. Our home, Greywater Watch, is no castle you've ever seen. And seeing it once does not mean you'll ever find it again. For Greywater Watch moves. Many would-be conquerors have died trying to find us. With war all around and our Stark Lord besieged on all sides, many more will doubtless soon try. They will look at us on a map and see a stranglehold for the north. And they will forget that the sea itself once entered the Neck,
Big ass
and not all
crocodile.
of it returned.
Oh, yeah, that's bad. Sick.
Like the Starks, the blood of House Bolton runs back to the first man. Singers call those times the Age of Heroes. A mask for a savage world that bred savage men. The Lannisters swindled their enemies. The Storm Kings hammered them, and the Starks cut off their heads. In such company as this, were the Boltons really so indelicate?
Good that you didn't watch this before
Unlike
season
some
3.
other houses.
Oh,
This
yeah,
was the
I'm
last
for
episode,
sure.
It was the
No.
last episode of
Bolton
season 3
words.
that you found out. And
Blades
you're like,
are
oh,
sharp.
better than sex.
They passed down
that
not
was
a
so
Valyrian
good.
greatsword, but a knife, honed and thin enough to fit between the topmost layer of skin and the tissue below, and peel. For as we all learned as children, a naked man has few secrets, a flayed man none.
Oh, man.
In those dark days, they say that some of my more willful forebearers would even wear their enemies' skins as cloaks. But no such tokens remain, if they ever existed. Certainly not hanging in some secret room in the Dreadfort, as old wives and fools insist. I suspect my house itself was responsible for spreading such rumors in the first place. Few weapons are as effective as terror, and this was an age of war. House against house, brother against brother. The Iron Men were on the rise, and never far from our shores. We must have seemed ripe for the taking, too busy fighting each other to deal with the raiders as they deserved. Thus the Starks
again.
took it upon themselves to unify the North. Under them, they drove the pirates out of White Knife and claimed the eastern coast.
Oh, no, there's no way
Married the
the
Marsh
direwolf
King's
was
daughter
that
for the
big.
neck. A Stark wrestled for Bear Island and won. Or so they say. Silly stories. Blood and Steel won the North, and the Starks had the most of both. After years of war, my ancestors gave up their barbaric practices and bent the knee to their new kings. Thus House Bolton became what we are today, loyal bannermen and staunch ally to the Starks, and the second greatest house in the North.
Oh, man.
Really
Fuck
good that you
them.
didn't watch these before
Yeah,
season
seriously.
3.
The Westerlands are all bounded by 3 natural defenses: mountain, sea, and forest. Necessary barriers when the land is as rich as ours. From our mines come the gold and silver that fuel the rest of Westeros.
Not anymore.
From Lannisport, our largest city, come the most skillful gold and silversmiths in the land. Yet geography alone is not strength. The Westerlands would have been sacked and pillaged for thousands of years if it hadn't been for the men who ruled it. My family, House Lannister. According to legend, we trace our descent to Lan the Clever, a trickster of the Dawn Age, who swindled the Casterlys out of Casterly Rock, their ancient castle. A childish story, but not without merit. 1, a mind can and should be a weapon in a man's arsenal. 2, Lan must have been clever enough not to rely solely on his wits. After all, where today is House Casterly. 3, by keeping the Casterly name on the castle, Lan reminded the world of the price of getting in his way.
Oh, that's
The
dope.
Rains ignored all these lessons. Not content with being the second richest family, they sought to challenge the
Rains?
first. Mine.
Hence the Reigns
My
of
father
Castle.
had put up with their insults and disrespect. When I came of age, I led our army to teach them what they should have known. Some people say I was too harsh, that eradicating every member of their family was not necessary. But now, there are no bannermen as loyal to their lord as the Westerlands to us. If any lord bridles at our authority, I have only to send a singer with a harp, and he falls back into line.
Oh,
Because
my
I will
God.
not have our lords squabble amongst themselves, like the lords of the Riverlands, or hide in their castles like the lords of the Vale, each of our bannermen contributes a unique skill that furthers the whole of the Westerlands. Ask Clegane, because every lord needs a beast from time to time. Sir Gregor strikes terror into the hearts of our enemies and our friends. So too does his disappointing brother Sandor, the traitor. House Payne, who provides us loyal servants. Sir Ilinpain was once captain of my household guard, until the Mad King heard him boast that I ran the Seven Kingdoms, which I did.
Which I did.
The Mad King tore out Sir Ilin's tongue, making him especially well suited to later become the King's Justice. Apparently these days, a younger Pain also serves my degenerate son, Tyrion.
Oh. Yeah.
House Lefford, who guards the Golden Tooth, the eastern pass through the mountains and the all-too-frequent chaos of the Seven Kingdoms. Though after Robb Stark's recent incursions, perhaps we need a new gatekeeper. Fools look at the Westerlands and see gold. Fools see our wealth and call it strength. Gold is just another rock. The Westerlands are strong because of House Lannister. From strong leadership comes unity. From unity comes power.
Tarth has lulled many a novice sailor into complacency. Our lush island sits on calm blue water like an emerald set into a sapphire. You would never guess that such a vision is only the sheath hiding the blade of Shipbreaker Bay, with its treacherous tides, unpredictable gales, and sharp rocks lurking just below the water's surface. The storms that blow through the bay water the Kingswood and Rainwood, two of the great forests of Westeros, and they give the Stormlands their name. Even without our weather, we have more than earned our name in strife. The first Storm King, Durin, started his reign by declaring war on the gods themselves. He loved the daughter of the sea god and the wind goddess, but they forbade the union. At their wedding, the gods unleashed their might, pulling down his hold and killing all of Durin's family and guests, though his wife shielded him. Durin vowed to rebuild, and when he did, the gods again destroyed his home. His counselors begged him to retreat inland, but he would not abandon his war. Finally, with the counsel of the Children of the Forest, or perhaps a young Bran the Builder, Durin raised a seventh castle that, try as they might, and still do, the wind and sea gods could not tear asunder. Durin took the name God's Grief and called his new home Storm's End.
Storm's End?
Having beaten the waters to the east,
Baratheon,
Storm Kings turned their gaze to more
that's the
practical
Baratheon
enemies. The Reach, Riverlands, and Dorne.
The beginning of the show.
We've heard of
Thousands of years,
we heard
Storm
about
Kings
Storm's
fought the
Reach
Gardener
before.
Kings of the
Somebody else
Reach
talked
and
about
various
it.
families of
Storm's
Dorne
End, yeah,
for
somebody else
control of
talked
the
about it.
Dornish marches just below the Red Mountains.
Or not Robert, I mean
The
Stan.
fighting didn't stop until Dorne married into the Seven Kingdoms, a mere 100 years ago.
Yeah.
After the war.
But still the houses of the Stormlands, such as the Dondarrions, guard the Boneway, the mountain pass into the marches, against any Dornish incursion. The Storm Kings had greater luck to their north, at first. They took the Trident from the River Kings and built an empire that stretched as far as the neck. But then the Ironborn swarmed out of their islands and pushed the Storm Kings out of the Riverlands. No doubt the Ironborn intended to expand their empire into the Stormlands. Before they had a chance, Aegon Targaryen landed with his dragons. While Aegon burned the kings of the Iron Islands, the Rock and the Reach, his fiercest commander and rumoured bastard brother, Orys Baratheon, set out to subdue the Stormlands. No matter how fierce a warrior he was,
Baratheon?
no one could have entered his task.
From
Storm's End had seen thousands of years of war and never fallen.
Targaryen?
But Arya,
Baratheon?
the Storm King,
Didn't you
chose
say there
not
was-
to
that they had
barricade
little
himself
bit of
behind its
Targaryen?
walls.
The
And
Bastard
gave
Brother
Orys the
Baratheon
battle he
is
must have
like,
hoped for. Orys slew Argilac and took Argilac's castle,
grandparents or great-grandparents
kingdom,
were
daughter,
Targaryens?
sigil, and house words. House Baratheon became the lord of the Stormlands. Targaryen rule quieted the Stormlands for the most part, until Robert rebelled against the Mad King. His first challenge came not from the crown, but from his own bannermen, who tried to join forces against him. Robert struck first, defeating 3 armies in a single day at Summerhall. The victory cemented Robert's control of the Stormlands, and he was able to march on the Reach and Riverlands with no enemy to his rear. Yet not all of Robert's bannermen sided with him. Sir Barristan the Bold came from the Stormlands, but as the preeminent member of Aerys Kingsguard and greatest knight in the realm, Sir Barristan remained loyal. After Robert's decisive victory on the Trident, Robert sent his own maester to care for his countryman Sir Barristan, who had suffered grievous wounds whilst fighting so hard to kill him. Later, when the Kingslayer betrayed Aerys, Robert pardoned Sir Barristan and even took him onto his own Kingsguard. When Robert lifted Mace Tyrell's ill-managed siege of Storm's End and returned to his ancestral home, he realized the dream of all the Stormlords before him, to rule the Seven Kingdoms. Then Robert died, and his brother Stannis killed their other brother, the noble King Renly, with black magic. Now the Stormlands again live up to their name.
Yeah.
With so many houses.
Oh, it's always
burnt
Stannis'
and
friend.
Blackwater and
Come on.
others carrying
But
flames
with
for
the
Lannisters
black
to seize
magic.
the survivors'
It
lands.
looks like a villain in that.
Renly could have saved us. If only I could have saved him. But I will teach Stannis a lesson he should have learnt growing up in the Stormlands. As lightning gives way to
now
thunder,
she's gonna go kill Stannis
so
because she
too
has
must
nothing else to
murder
do.
lead to vengeance.
Unless she's gonna get Sansa first. God, I hope Lady Tarth kills Melisandre. No, this is new.
Growing up, my sister Sansa loved stories with princesses and knights, but I always wanted to be scared. When my turn came, I would ask Old Nan to tell us of magic and monsters.
I think
Long
so.
ago, when the world was new, the children of the forest sang the song of the earth, and the earth listened. Magic was strong in those days, and the children could commune with all the beasts of the forest, streams and air. The greatest of them could even leave their bodies to hunt, swim and fly in the skins of animals.
That's sick.
They were the first wargs. Then, the first men came, with fire and sword. They burned the weirwoods and cut down the children. Calling on dark magic, the children raised the sea, and shattered the land bridge that the first men had crossed into dawn. When that failed, the children brought down the hammer of waters upon the neck, flooding and transforming it into the bog it is today. After peace came, the two races shared the land and the children's gods for thousands of years. Now comes the good part. Nobody knows how or why, but the magic of the children began to emerge in men. Maybe one child in 1,000 would be born a warg. Fewer still would be born with the sight. Old Nan would not speak of it, and Maester Luwin never believed in it. But with it, the children could know of events far away and even those still to come. Some say the sight was the children's most powerful and terrible secret, and helped turn the tide during the long night. Magic has since fled our world. Among the small folk, any child suspected of being a warg will be left out to die.
Wow.
Beyond the wall, though, a careless hunter might still find his prey has claws and teeth, and a man's mind to guide them, for the wildlings have a different idea of monsters. But even wildlings keep their distance from a warg, because, and here Old Nan would lean in close and whisper, how can you tell if the man is wearing the beast, or the beast is wearing the man? Now, Old Nan has no more tales, and Maester Luwin will never scoff again. That's fine. I don't like scary stories anymore. Because I'm in one.
As a boy, looking out from my father's castle, I thought the sun could never set on the north, so vast did it seem. Part of me still does. The north is by far the largest of the Seven Kingdoms, and can fit the other 6 inside it. Not that the others care. Cold and damp. That's how the southerners see the north. But without the cold, a man can't appreciate the fire in his hearth. Without the rain, a man can't appreciate the roof over his head. Let the south have its sun, flowers and affectations. We northerners have home. Mine was once Winterfell, the ancient seat of my father's family, House Stark, who have ruled the north since the first men and were once the kings of winter. Growing up, Lady Catelyn made sure I knew I wasn't a Stark, no matter how much blood I shared with her true-born children. But where their name rules over the North, mine is the North. Snow. Our land stretches from the wall down to the neck, a narrow land that divides us from the rest of Westeros. Legend has it that the children of the forest flooded it in their war against the First Men. If that's true, every Northman owes them a debt of gratitude. The swamps of the neck are as good as the wall for keeping out unwelcome armies. And if the swamps don't deter you, the Crannog men should. Small, shy people who rarely leave those swamps, and who follow House Reed, the gatekeepers of the North, and among the most important and loyal bannermen of House Stark. Also a bit strange. I heard their oath of fealty once as a child. It's like no other lords, ancient and dark. They swear by earth and water, by bronze and iron, and by ice and fire. Where House Reed holds the gate to the north, House Manderley holds the port, White Harbour, the closest thing to a southern city we have, governed by the closest thing to a southern family we have. Generations ago, the Manderleys were driven from the Reach, but the Starks gave them their land in return for fealty. Now White Harbour is the richest city of the north, and the Manderleys the richest family. Not in gold and silver like their southern counterparts, but in fish, grain, and trade. As for the other great northern houses, the Starks brought them into the fold during the Age of Heroes. A Stark wrestled an Ironborn for Bear Island and gave it to the Mormonts. A Stark granted a keep and land to a younger son, Carlon, in return for putting down a rebellion. His family then grew up into the Karstarks. Starks fought the Wildlings and their kings beyond the wall beside the Umbers of Last Earth, thus earning their fealty. Boltons.
The Umbers?
Back then they were the bane of the North.
That's where Osha was going.
A few were even rumoured to wear their enemies' flayed skins as
they have a thing too, but not flay.
After centuries of war, they too bent the knee. And so House Stark became the kings in the North, but never forgot that they weren't the North. When Aegon and his dragons landed on Westeros, the kings of the Rock and the Reach sent all their men to die to defend their crowns. Torrhen Stark knelt to spare his people the same fate. He placed duty above pride, just as my brothers in the Night's Watch had done for thousands of years at the Wall. Many think of it as the end of the world, but it's not. I've seen how the land stretches much farther than any man knows, into the land of always winter where the White Walkers came from during the long night. After the first men and the children of the forest beat them back, Brandon the Builder raised the wall and set up the Night's Watch to guard the realms of men. He gave us our oath, our castles, and the gift, the lands behind the wall whose farmers and crops sustain us.
Oh my god, I just had an idea now that I realize how much giants are a thing. If Bran can take hold of a giant,
not without cause. But the North remembers why we are there. And if we fall, the South will get a very
There was rumors that giants were ones that helped build the wall.
Yeah, that's what made me think of it. I mean, now that I know there's giants, I'm assuming that they were the ones who did it.
Men have fought over the Riverlands since the Dawn Age, though that's to be expected of things that rest below the neck. Doesn't help that the Riverlands are between everything and everything else. The Westerlands gold, the Reaches grain, the Vales rock, and the North's snow? House Mud once ruled as the kings of the rivers and hills.
Who's that?
But after 1,000 years, their line was exhausted.
No,
and fell to the Storm Kings.
No, who's
who fell to the Iron
Is it Blackfish?
I suppose after years of drowning at sea, our rivers look pretty attractive to that race of pirates and rapers. Never mind that their monstrous castle, Harrenhal, was too large to staff and garrison. It turned out the Ironborn wouldn't be there long enough to bother.
Probably
Aegon Targaryen landed to our south,
which I would guess
and
Blackfish.
as had many before him, liked the look of the Riverlands. My ancestor Edmund Tully led the desertion of Riverlords to his cause, and was rewarded by getting to watch King Harren burn in his own tower. Unfortunately, that's not all Edmund got. House Tully was named the Lords Paramount of the Trident, which means we had to keep in line all those lords who hadn't governed themselves for thousands of years. We were now responsible for aiding the Malasters at Seaguard against the pouting Ironborn whenever they got cheeky. For settling Harrenhal on families stupid enough to think its curse would skip them after devouring all previous families. For keeping the Blackwoods and Brackens from wiping each other out, and giving us two more castles to deal with. For keeping the Freys in their place and out of others' pockets.
The one that had the tree.
For marrying off our sons and daughters wisely enough, so we didn't follow House Mud into, well, the mud. Yet under the Targaryens, the Riverlands knew a peace we hadn't had for centuries, if ever. But like all good things, sooner or later it all goes to shit. And our shit had a name. Aerys Targaryen. Westeros has had its share of Mad Kings, but usually they had the sense not to bully more than one powerful house at a time. Aerys soon blundered into a triple alliance. The North, Stormlands, and Vale rose against him. But of course, where do you think most of the blood was spilled? My brother Hoster guaranteed the answer to that with the marriage of my niece to Eddard Stark, the Warden of the North. At least Hoster didn't send her to Robert. So, the Riverlands joined the war against the Mad King, and it was on one of our rivers that Prince Rhaegar died, sealing the fate of his dynasty. Robert was a great soldier and a horrible king. Drinking and whoring are their own brand of madness when you sit on a throne that everybody wants. He died, and another war started. Again the armies marched. Again the Riverlands burned. If Westeros isn't careful, pretty soon our people will grow some sense and abandon this place for a safer realm, like the Dothraki Sea. I joke, of course. The Riverlands are our home, and God's help us, we love it. Still, as they say, the king eats and the hand takes the shit. The same is true of the Riverlands. The Seven Kingdoms piss, and the Riverlands change clothes.